So anyway, the Grammys went ahead as normal. Beyonce dominated the list of Grammy award contenders. She had 11 nods. She won Album of the Year for the first time. And I'm only reflecting on Grammys, not because we talk particularly about celebrity around here, but because this woman died during a Grammy weekend. Whitney Elizabeth Houston. I mean, what can I say about Whitney Houston? Well, first of all, a phenomenal artist, absolutely phenomenal artist. And she was discovered very young in the church. She was signed to Arista Records by Clive Davis, and he will feature very largely in this comment that I'm going to say right now. She was signed by Clive Davis, who also handled Diddy and a number of other people, including Barry Manilow. But Whitney Houston, well, so Whitney Houston was undoubtedly Clive Davis's biggest asset. She sold more records than any of his other artists. That is a reality. And Davis discovered her in her teens. He nurtured her talent. He did shape her into the best-selling artist, or one of the best-selling artists of all times. And yes, she could sing the roof off of a house. Clive Davis founded Arista Records in 1974. He actually signed Barry Manilow, Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, Patti Smith, Westlife, Alicia Keys, Bay City Rollers, on and on and on. He founded Bad Boy Records with Sean Puffy Combs. It became the home of the Notorious Big, and we're going to be talking about him in a minute. But on this Grammy weekend, Whitney Houston breathed her last. February the 11th, 2012. She's more commonly known as the American singer, actress, and film producer. She was known as The Voice for selling more than 220 million records worldwide. She had immense crossover appeal. She influenced the breaking down of both gender and racial barriers, no doubt about it. She was married to singer Bobby Brown. They separated after 15 years. They had one child together, Bobby Christina, who died in similar circumstances to Whitney. We're going to be talking about that. And on February the 9th, 2012, Houston visited singers Brandy and Monica. And Brandy and Monica were with Clive Davis, and they were promoting their new single. And their new single was called It All Belongs to Me. And what happened was Whitney essentially kind of bum rushed this recording that they were doing and went in, and a very strange thing took place. So this is Whitney. You can see her. She's giving a hug to Clive Davis, who is in the middle. Brandy is in the black. Monica is in the black and white. And Whitney handed a note, which you can actually see in the top picture, to Brandy, which to this day, Brandy has refused to say what that note said. Right. This is 2 days before Whitney Houston died. She handed a note to Brandy, and Brandy has refused to tell us what that note said. Now, did that note have anything to do with drugs? Brandy is the sister of Ray J. And in Hollywood circles, Ray J has been around quite a lot. Ray J is the reason that the Kardashians have the career that they have, because he was involved in the sex tape with Kim Kardashian that Kris sold, because all mothers sell sex tapes of their daughters. Well, pimps do. Ray J was said to be involved with Whitney Houston, although many people allege that he was actually getting drugs for her as opposed to being romantically involved with her. Brandy is Ray J's sister, and Whitney handed that note to Brandy. And it was all really, really odd. It was very, very odd indeed. And so then what happened was, and that same day, Whitney made her last public performance when she joined Kelly Price on stage in Hollywood, and she sang Jesus Loves Me. And she was actually a bit disheveled. And that was the thing, is that things were getting tough for Whitney. She'd spent rather a lot of time on drugs and drink, and it was difficult. It's always difficult in those environments where you end up with having been right at the peak, the absolute peak. And then Whitney was not at the peak anymore. And that was for a number of reasons. But 2 days later, on February the 11th, 2012, what we heard was that Whitney was found unconscious in suite 434 at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She was submerged in the bathtub, and paramedics arrived about 3:35 p.m., found Houston unresponsive, performed CPR. She was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. The cause of death was not immediately known. But several months later, the coroner ruled that she had died from drowning, with the effects of heart disease and cocaine use. The manner of death was listed as accident. And as I say, this coincided with the Grammys annual Grammys Award. It was actually the 54th one, and which actually took place the following day. But on the day that Whitney was found dead, Clive Davis's pre-Grammy party that Houston had been expected to attend went ahead. It went ahead. And this is where it gets really, really sick for me. And this is where I struggle with a lot of it, right? I want to bring in some more images because here's the thing. I'm going to be really clear here. I believe that Whitney Houston was killed. Right. I'm just going to say it there, just straight off the bat right there. I believe that Whitney Houston was killed. And at Clive Davis's party, as I say, it went ahead. There's this huge party every year that takes place at the Beverly Hills Hilton. Well, you know who owns the Beverly Hills Hilton, right? The Hilton family, and that includes Paris Hilton. Here's actually Clive Davis at his party when his protege is lying dead upstairs, and they left her upstairs until 1:35 in the morning. From 3:30 in the afternoon and 3:55 when she was pronounced dead, they left her upstairs above the party, right? Her dead body. If that doesn't sound sacrificial and ritualistic, I don't know what does, right? I don't know what does, okay? And so the thing is about Whitney Houston is absolutely no comment about Whitney would be complete without the mention of Clive Davis. Okay, he's a music industry titan. As I said, he's been influencing people with music for many, many years. He was the big boss at Arista Records, which he founded, and he did discover Whitney as such. And the pre-Grammy party, well, guess who was there? Diddy was at that pre-Grammy party, as indeed was Britney Spears, Tony Bennett, Diana Ross, Jessie J. And it was really this. Here's what's kind of sick. Davis told the crowd, simply put, Whitney would have wanted the music to go on and her family asked that we carry on. Well, that's not what Chaka Khan said. Chaka Khan was interviewed by CNN and she refused to go to that party. And she said, absolutely not. It shouldn't have gone ahead, that there was something wrong about it. Jane Fonda was there. She wrote why it had to go ahead. She was actually there to give a prize to Richard Branson. Now, I want to set this scene for you. There's Whitney Houston dead upstairs. Richard Branson is downstairs receiving a prize. What anecdote do you think that Richard Branson may have talked about receiving that prize at that Grammy party? He talked about being circumcised. Why would he talk about being circumcised at the age of 15 in such a somber event? These people are sick. They're absolutely sick. There's no doubt about it. And Jane Fonda said it was so important that it went ahead, and it was only when she got home that she realized that they had been partying below Whitney's body. That's what she said. And as I say, well, she does recall the oddest anecdote to do with Richard Branson, which I thought was really, really sick. Chaka Khan was furious. She said, no, Whitney would not have said the show must go on. She's the kind of woman who would have said, stop everything, I'm not going to be there. They should have stopped it. They didn't stop it because it was for a reason. And as I say, 2 days before her death, she interrupted an interview with Clive Davis to give Brandy a note. And this is where I think it starts to get really kind of... Brandy and Monica were promoting their new single. And their new single, which involved Clive Davis, was called It All Belongs to Me. And it was a song about a dysfunctional relationship. And let me just see if I can get the images I want to show you. And in the video, so bear in mind, this is where I think it's important, right? In the video, which when Whitney died, the day after that, Brandy released a little clip from the video. And the video actually... showed Monica, it might have been Monica who released the clip, but it showed Monica actually wearing a t-shirt with Whitney Houston's face on in this new video for the new song that they were promoting when Whitney came in and gave a note to Brandy. Now look at those images. I really want you to look at them, check this out. So you've got Monica in the top image. She's wearing a Whitney Houston t-shirt. In the middle image, she's in a bathroom with a man. She's wearing a Whitney Houston t-shirt and she's about to cut his tie. I interpret that as cutting ties with Whitney Houston. And then the final picture is the dastardly deed has been done, and there's somebody in quite sinister outfit in a bathroom. And she did pass on Brandy's birthday. Iman, she absolutely did. And it's interesting because Brandy's album was called 211, which was obviously Brandy's birthday, and that was her album that was released that year. It was called 211. I've never gotten over this video, and it ends actually with Brandy and Monica coming out of the building and going on and on about how, and I think the lyrics are also really interesting. Let me read you some of the lyrics. If I can find it here, it all belongs to me. Yeah, it was loving you is hard. I feel like I'm about to hurt myself and I don't want to do it. I'm loving you so hard, and the way you act ain't been no help. And then it goes on to say that I'm taking back everything, right? I know you're mad, can't take no more, but put that back, that ain't yours. Have a fit, slam the door, but leave them bags on the floor, that belongs to me. Those clothes, those cars, those rings, and that MacBook, that belongs to me. It all belongs to me. And I just felt that that was a message about Whitney. It was about, you've gone off the rails, you are no longer manageable, we cannot handle you, and we are cutting ties with Whitney. And on top of that, this video, which came out in March, less than a month after Whitney had died, was dedicated to Whitney Houston. Those diamond rings, Ian knows the song. And I think it is, isn't it? I think it says in there, yeah. And so I think that's really interesting. And then, of course, it didn't end with Whitney. Very sadly, it didn't end with Whitney. And so then what you had was, and I always follow the money, but her daughter, Bobby Christina, died in circumstances that were tragically similar to her mum. She was found unconscious in a bathtub in her home, which she had inherited from Whitney. And we must always follow the money, because when Whitney died, she left behind a $20 million fortune in inheritance, which initially went to her only daughter, Bobby Christina. And the instructions left by Whitney in the will further states that if Bobby Christina were to die unmarried without children of her own and had left no will and testament of her own, the estate would be divided among Whitney's living relatives. Well, that's where I started to have a bit of a problem, because some of Whitney's living relatives are a bit problematic. And one of them is her brother Gary, who is married to Pat Houston. Gary was a bodyguard who was actually on the door outside the hotel when Whitney died. And Pat Houston was Whitney's manager, and Pat Houston knew how to exploit this situation. And shortly after Whitney had died, Pat Houston signed a deal for a reality show that featured Bobby Christina. And honestly, as a mother, my heart broke seeing this child exploited across the screen. She was off her face half the time. She was either drunk or on drugs. And it was clear that she had a problematic relationship with her boyfriend, Nick Gordon, who Whitney had essentially adopted as like a young son, and Nick then died. Are we getting that? Whitney Houston died. Then her daughter, Bobby Christina, died in similar circumstances. And then Nick Gordon died shortly afterwards. Okay. And as I say, I always say, follow the money. So obviously the money will have gone to the Houston clan. Bobby Brown's sister has a real problem with what has happened. Leola Brown is in no doubt whatsoever that both Whitney and Bobby Christina were murdered. They were murdered. And the thing is that I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody here, but the point is this, and that is, first of all, that Grammys was the most watched Grammys in years. The one where Whitney died, and people were watching it because they said they wanted to see the reactions of people there who were at the Grammys to see if they were impacted by it. So that's the first thing, right? The most watched Grammys in years. Then Whitney's music absolutely surged again following her death, right? She sold 8 million records worldwide in the first 10 months of the year she died. Her music had dropped off. She wasn't selling, not in the same way. The single I Will Always Love You, it returned to the Billboard Hot 100 after almost 20 years away. She set a Guinness World Record for a female artist by placing 10 albums inside the Billboard Top 200 simultaneously, and she didn't make a cent from it. Everybody else who was left behind fed off her like they had in life. Right. And so, as I say, who's earning off her in death? record labels, publishers, members of her own family, right? And I repeat, Whitney Houston was taken out like so many other music industry legends. She had become unmanageable for her handlers. She had damaged her voice through drugs and drink, and she was worth more in death than in life. That was the reality. It is appalling but true. And I still to this day find it shocking that we are to believe the official story. The official story makes absolutely no damn sense. And on top of that, the coroner's report, which was released, I think, about a month and a half after Whitney's death, it said that they believe she had been dead for at least an hour. Well, that doesn't even add up, because it was her assistant who found her, and her assistant left the hotel room at 3 p.m. to go out and run some errands. She came back at 3:30 and found Whitney. That doesn't mean she's been dead for an hour. So that's on the official coroner's report. So it's already wrong right there. It's already wrong. She needs saving. Who needs saving, Sasha? I don't know if there's anybody to save from this lot. Is there? It's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah, I think there's a whole collection of people who've been taken out early. That is the reality. But I just think that it can't possibly be a coincidence that Whitney Houston died, the boy that she essentially adopted as her son died, and her own daughter died. What the hell is going on? And as I say, follow the money. There's an awful lot of very rich people who never contributed to the powerhouse that was Whitney Houston. Rest in peace, Whitney. You deserve so much more. You deserve so much more. They took her out. They took her out.
It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.